I think that is or what we think we've proven, but we're not sure. But on our head-to-heads, it comes out quite often is that they're not equipped for inclusive marketing. So when you're talking about the largest DSPs in the market that most Fortune 1000 marketers are using, and even smaller ones, they just miss out on essentially small publishers, mid-sized publishers, and I'm talking from a digital perspective, right? So, and what happens there is if they're not represented in the marketplace.
Charles Cantu is the kind of guy who doesn't just talk about fixing ad tech, he actually does it. While the industry clings to outdated models and meaningless buzzwords, he's out here building a future where AI actually understands emotions, where brands stop throwing money into the same black holes, and where advertising isn't just seen, it's felt. From neuroprogrammatic targeting to the holographic ads of tomorrow, Charles isn't waiting for the industry to catch up. He's already there. Buckle up, this one's going to change how you think about everything.
Troutman, the czar of the TCPA, isn't just the guy you call when your phone rings too much. He's the guy you must call. Need to navigate the legal minefield of robocalls, texts, and telemarketing nightmares? Troutman doesn't just give you advice. He hands you a roadmap, a compass, and a do not press this button sign. Practical? Yes. Actionable? Absolutely. And if you're not calling him first, let's be honest, you're probably making a mistake.
Charles, you've been in the trenches of ad tech for decades, building, selling, and reinventing. How are you holding up these days? Are you in the crushing it and loving every espresso soak moment phase? Or are we just closer to why did I ever agree to take on this much responsibility? Let's set the tone before we dive in.
Yeah, I would say that we're in the crushing phase. So our crushing it phase, we have had triple-digit growth basically since inception. So we're in the right place, right time, right product, it seems like.
So I want to talk a little about neuroprogrammatic, which you describe as a cognitive marketing magic. Is it more like a brain surgeon for ads, precisely cutting through consumer indifference, or is it more like a therapist helping brands work through the fear of being ignored issues?
I think it's more in tune with a contextual tool that allows us to analyze using large language AI to essentially say, okay, these are the emotions in a signal, right? That signal being content or that signal being creative. And matching those two things together with an understanding of psychographics will give you essentially
You're gonna see me shine, 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 shine. Walking on beams of light, 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 light. You're gonna see me shine, 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 shine. I can't help myself, no, no. Blue skies, no dark clouds, nothing in my...
So how did you teach an algorithm to Phil? Are we talking little touchy-feely AI, or did you make it watch Dr. Phil?
So essentially what we're doing is we're looking at, the backstory is we're looking at every word in the human language, in the English language. And then we started tying those words into, which ones have the most weight in regard to how they make us feel. And then we tied those to essentially 65 emotions. A gentleman named Nate Rakewitz, who used to work for A&E and HBO, Take-Two Interactive Games, had perfected these models. And so we bought his company and folded that AI in, and it performs like gangbusters.
Right, so emotional targeting is the future, but do a lot of ad execs give you the side eye when you try to explain it to them?
Yeah, so it's been a long journey with being able to target emotionally. I think the world is ready for it right now. So fortunate for us, we happen to be a diverse-owned company. After Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, there was a lot of demand for that, and so we saw a big growth there. Now I think emotions and emotional targeting and cognitive messaging are a big deal. And without naming names of folks that we're in deep conversations with on massive scale for 2025, pretty excited about the announcements that are coming soon.
So what's one metric your neuroprogrammatic clients obsess over, and what's one they should care about?
Yeah, everybody same, different, right? It's sales or some fashion of sales and ROAS and the like. One case study that we shared, Publicis and Starbucks at the ANA runs earlier this year, was 200% lift in foot traffic, 600% lift in sales, and representative, we reached, I think, close to 85% diverse communities, so whether it was Black, Hispanic, Asian, and Caucasian, didn't matter. We were actually being pretty close to the census measured by Nielsen, Foursquare, Nielsen, and the actual sales data.
So let's dream a little bit big. 5 years from now, is Neuroprogrammatic dominating every major campaign? Or are you going to still be fighting the uphill battle against lazy creative briefs?
So I think neuroprogrammatic is future state and state beyond just media. I think what we're going to find is that people that are wise will be using it to understand the briefs that they created in the first place, right? So a lot of times a marketer will send a brief to an agency and it won't be consistent with the emotions that they're trying to dig out. It will be a tool for agencies to say, hey, do you actually want these 7 emotions, or were you looking for something more similar to what the ethos of your website is sharing? So I think, in addition, landing pages, copy, all of those things will be able to surround a consumer and give them a warm hug, right? If they're the type that wants a warm hug, then that's what they'll be getting.
If Neuroprogrammatic were a movie, what would the tagline be?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough one. You got to give me a couple of days to think about that one. I mean,
So I'm thinking something like finally ads that don't make your eyes roll.
I think in the end, it just feels right? And I think I would go something with that. I mean,
in the end, it just feels right.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all human. Black, white, red, brown, purple, polka dot, doesn't matter. We all go through this world, hopefully trying to feel better and good and do more of that and share more of that in the world. Not everybody's like that, but quite frankly, that's kind of how we're wired, right? To move towards and away certain kinds of stimuli. In that way, we're the same. In that way, we are wired to do the same thing. And technically, when you look at what marketers are trying to do, unless you're talking about political, which we'll leave that aside for a second, I think the best ads in history are more altruistic in that way.
Right. So speaking of ambition, I want to talk a little about diversity and why Reset Digital is shaking up an industry that often seems more comfortable with lip service than actual change. I want to get real. How do you convince advertisers that diverse spending isn't just a checkbox?
Yeah, we've been blessed, right? So when we started Reset, we weren't in that category. We weren't trying to shoot for that category. I don't know if you know Tony Pace, but he was the ex-chairman of the ANA and ex-CMO of Subway. And I had done some consulting, with Tony prior to and during the ANA announcements of transparency and all the issues around that in programmatic. And what he was really pushing after I had built and sold Colossus and Huddled Matches, essentially went to Direct Digital Holdings, he wanted to do it all over again. And to be honest, I wanted to sell cannabis legally and make video games, which is where I was headed. But Tony was incredibly persuasive, and so we built Reset Digital with the premise of benefiting the endpoints, consumer, marketer, and publisher. And we did a good job of that, but the world wasn't ready for that either. And around 2020, we got asked to essentially build FSP all over again. So we did that, and we became the largest inclusive marketplace in the world.
Right. So why do you think brands are still throwing pennies at diverse media while showering billions on the same 10 platforms that everyone hates?
What I think that or what we think we've proven, but we're not sure. But on our head-to-heads, it comes out quite often, is that they're not equipped for inclusive marketing. So when you're talking about, the largest DSPs in the market that, most Fortune 1000 marketers are using, and even smaller ones, they just miss out on essentially small publishers, mid-sized publishers. And I'm talking from a digital perspective, right? So, and what happens there is if they're not represented in the marketplace and they're not, or they're blocked, then there's no way that money is going to flow. And so it's a full ecosystem issue, and quite frankly, it's a DSP. So marketers have to accept that. But with ours in the Starbucks case study, and we've got hundreds of them, every time they're using us because we super serve those small and mid-sized publishers, and quite frankly, that includes white, right? If they're small and mid-sized, they're struggling with the Trade Desk and Google. right? That's the reality of today.
So Triple Lift is a major partner in your mission. How did you convince them to be a part of this? And how would you use that to convince other executives to be a part?
Yeah, what's fascinating is we didn't convince Triple Lift. A shared client of ours came to us, which was Horizon Media, right? The largest independent agency in the world. And they said, hey, we want you guys to work together. And both of us said, yeah, that makes perfect sense, right? So we moved in that direction, and glad that we did.
So how do you measure success here? Is it about advertising dollars moved to diverse media, systemic change, or just knowing you're annoying all the right people?
So I think it's not just annoying all the right people for the brand, for the marketer, but also driving performance, right? So unlike most, I think, diverse or inclusive focused media companies or ad tech companies, we solely focus on performance. And so, a bad day for us is increasing brand lift or sales 15%. For any large brand, that's a massive lift in sales and or brand preference. So that's been our focus from day one. That's literally our mission and mantra, is to perform. On the other side, that we do better than everyone else, which I think is silly. When the market says that they can spend 2% or 4% and they're struggling to do it, we easily spend 50%, 40% again and again with diverse funds. So it's not just sharing money with diverse publications and media. For us, it's driving performance.
So if the ad industry had to take a pop quiz on diversity, what's the one question most execs would always fail? And extra credit, what does NABOB stand for?
NABOB is NABOB, National Association of Black-Owned Broadcasters. And NNPA, just so you know, used to be the National Negro Publishers Association, but it's the National Newspaper Publishers Association. We represent both of them exclusively. What I think people miss is diversity marketing is now mainstream marketing. And while people pay a lot of lip service to that, very few know how to actually do it and do it well. I see people failing at it almost every day on a daily basis. And if you look at, here's a good point example. If you look at what happened in the recent election, there was a series of failures on the Democrat side in how to reach Blacks and Hispanics.
Right. So I want to talk a little bit about ethics of empathetic AI. It sounds like a headline from a sci-fi novel, but you managed to make it a reality, or at least the marketing version of it. Tell me, how do you balance the promise of emotional renaissance with the creeping fear that we're just one algorithm away from a Black Mirror dystopia?
Yeah, I think with AI, I'm not of the opinion that the machines will take over the world. I don't see that work.
Right.
I've read many, many books, and even the ones that came out of MIT. What I do think is that AI is great for tools that help us, right? We've been using AI for decades now. And in regard to what we are able to achieve, being able to essentially ensure that people are spoken to the way they want to be spoken to and the way they're treated the way they want to be treated, the platinum rule, as they say. There's nothing better than that for the brand and for the consumer. And that just kind of ties back into our mantra of, delivering on the endpoints. But that's a key component. And in one day, if we ever sell this business, I'm going to take the underlying technology and essentially build a tool for people to make themselves feel the way they want.
Right. Well, so AI tends to reinforce biases when it's fed by data. So nobody really needs more ads telling women they should smile more. So how does your technology avoid becoming the digital equivalent of that uncle that thinks he knows everything but really doesn't?
Yeah, I think, some of the beauty of what is digital is being able to multivariate. That's always ongoing. But the reality is when I talk about us being wired for a certain way, we make sense of the world based on where we grew up, our culture, our friends, our jobs, the people that are around us. And that helps us in the information that we take in, however we take it. That gives us kind of a quick cheat sheet on how we preference in making decisions. If we're preferencing to make decisions to watch certain types of content that brings about feelings of love, connection, and belonging, there's no harm, no foul in creating ads that are congruent with those feelings. But they resonate more. It's a more intimate connection when the content and the creative and the consumer are aligned with those feelings. And so we're not saying, hey, buy these shoes, buy these shoes, buy these shoes because we saw you on the website and you already bought the shoes. We're not following people tracking. We're not making assumptions based on where you live. We're essentially being keen on creative and content and then understanding what that would mean to a consumer from a psychographic standpoint.
All right, let's play devil's advocate. Do people really want their ads to have empathy, or do they just want click here for 50% off?
I don't know that anyone would say, I want my ad to have empathy, but I do think that, and I do know that factually, when there is a connection between the emotions in the ad, the emotions on the TV screen, call it a fast channel, and what I am predisposed to want to feel, I know that that is harmonic.
So how do we keep this from the Russians using it, for example, for disinformation?
Well, how do we keep the Russians out of disinformation from astroturfing our internet in general? Like, that's a much bigger question than a reset.
Right.
But the reality is, the good news is what we have, no one else does. Can it be reverse engineered? Possibly through time. But the reality is, I don't know how we're going to stop, criminals from being criminals. I just know we got a better widget now.
Right. I imagine AI, probably empathizing with your fears while trying to sell you a bunker. Is that too dark?
Well, that's isn't that what a lot of political ads do now, right? They tie into hate and they tie into fears, and then they try to move you. And, they call that inhibitory states, right? They elicit an inhibitory state and then try to move you through it. Does it work? Yes. Is it powerful? Yes. On the other side of that, we believe that excitatory states are where it's at. But if you start with an inhibitory state, right? Like, do you hate washing dishes? And move them into an excitatory state of, the easiest, fastest, most charming way of doing dishes saves you a lot of time. That's the ticket. And I'm not as articulate as probably some of the creatives that would design that ad, but the reality is that that's what we're going for. And if people are self-selecting for horror films, then there are what someone would say inhibitory states in that, right? But if you can harness that in your ad, there's your win.
I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about your partnership with Triple. You've done it to make diversity in media more than just a buzzword. It sounds noble. Let's get real. How do you keep this momentum going when the industry seems happier slapping a rainbow logo on the homepage and calling it a day?
Yeah, I think for us and Triple Lift and probably everyone out there that's in this segment that's fighting for those kinds of dollars, I think, the most important thing is to deliver. And I say that because brands don't come back year after year if things don't work. There are some announcements we have coming up, if not by the end of the year, then early next year, around financing and helping different publishers, different creators. And when that stuff comes out, I'm pretty sure we're going to be the only people that are actually doing the good work.
What's unrep?
Say what?
What is unrep or unrep?
Unrep.
It says that it says Reset Digital and Triple F collaborated to drive ad dollars to diverse-owned media through curated packages like underrepresented voices.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So I think unrep is underrepresented. The reality is, this gets back to the small publishers, right? Small and mid-sized publishers. A lot of times they've got a wonky ad stack. They're not getting good analytics. They can't afford the analytics that they would want to grow their sites. They can't afford the analytics to get more ads placed on their pages from the different SSPs and exchanges and DSPs. So there's just a lot of challenges for the little guy and gal, and ultimately we're trying to fill that gap.
You've mentioned before that black-owned media is often overlooked in favor of big platforms. What is the one excuse you always hear that makes your blood boil?
I think the thing that I hear a lot is, what do you have that's unique?
Right.
I think that's a red herring that a lot of marketers will use to kind of give you the Heisman. Other thing that they'll say is, well, what else do you have, right? So if you say, I represent all of the black press and I represent all of the black broadcasters, NABOB and NFPA, then they'll get, and what else, right? So it's almost as if it's never enough. And then today I've had, an interesting conversation with a Fortune 100 advertiser that we brought them massive scale sites and all of our diverse sites. And it was as if they didn't want the massive scale sites So there's always going to be something. You can't please all the people all the time.
What about the brand safety excuse?
I think that's dying because I think people are realizing that brand safety was kind of a farce in the beginning in the first place.
Right.
You know, you need to be in the right environment, and you need to have a team that's checking what those environments are, that they're not made for advertising and that they're not, you know, astroturfing during the political season and so on and so forth. But it's hard work, right? That's a lot of people power, and people
Right.
want to check a box, but I haven't seen any of that box checking work for anyone, marketer or publisher alike.
So you've said that holograms in true AR will change the game, but let's be honest, most brands can't even figure out TikTok yet. Are we destined for a Jetsons level ad future? Are we just dressing up the same old billboards with fancier ad tech?
Well, I mean, if you look at the number of patents that both Microsoft and Apple have between the two, you're talking
Right.
about tens of thousands of patents in hologram technology. What that looks and feels like in my living room, I don't know, but goddamn it, I can't wait. So as far as how that works, you know, there are companies like Myriad, I just got off the call with them, that are currently stitching in product placement and billboards into content. That's an interesting thing, right? Are we going to be stitching in ads into a hologram? I don't see why not, right? And what does that look and feel like? Will we be able to integrate the olfactory bit, because, you know, triggering memories by smells, you know, grandma's cookies or mom's coffee cake, you know, when I come home on a rainy day in California, like, what does that all end up being for people? I don't know, but I just feel like that's going to be something special.
Just not a Charmin bear ad. So, if what piece of emerging tech do you think will flop spectacularly?
I think, you know, people are wearing them now, but the wearables, it's really hard to make that work, right? So, you know, I bought a, what do you call it? The Apple Vision Pro. And I just don't, I mean, how many people do you see wearing that on the street, right? You can walk around with it, but I just don't see that happening anytime soon, right? I think
I've never seen it. Right.
It's just really hard to make a wearable work, and including the Ray-Ban glasses and so on and so forth. When someone makes that work, I'm going to be blown away, but I just haven't seen it be the thing.
So let's say Reset Digital launches the first full-blown AR campaign. What's the brand? What's the gimmick? And how do you make it actually useful instead of just shiny?
Yeah, I think, again, for me, it always comes down to how you make people feel. I think if you can connect with people, you can draw a sense of intimacy in the me you see, as a Western, right? I think that's where the magic is. And so for me, it's much less kind of the shiny thing. It's the essence of who we are as human beings and how we interact with something. When we get that right, it always works. Right? Whether that's in a personal relationship or whether that's in an ad. Doesn't matter.
What do you think the first emotional hologram will target, and why do I think it will be guilt?
Guilt sells. Ask your mom.
Right.
That's my mom. So I at the end of the day...
My mom just moved to Phoenix where I live, so yeah, guilt sells.
Listen, usually, and I don't want to toot my own, but smart kids, smarter moms use guilt to move those kids. It's just the way it works. It's always worked. You know, to be honest, I don't know. I'm not really a futuristic, like, how is AR going to move us in that way? What I know is that, you know, folks like us hypothesize how these things are going to be and how they're going to work. And at the end of the day, you can't predict them, right? No one knows at this point. I think we're at the early stage of AI and not even touching hologram yet. Like, it's the same thing when the .com bust was happening. Like, did we know that Amazon was going to be Amazon? Right? Did we know that PayPal was going to turn into, you know, Tesla, and it was going to turn into SpaceX and so on and so forth? Like, you can't predict these things. You can make guesstimations, but you really can't.
In 5 years, what do you hope people will say about Reset Digital's role in shaping the future marketing? Are you aiming for visionary disruptor, or is there a new buzzword we should start using now?
No. My goal, that we're going to announce, I guess we can announce it now, but we have a vision that we are going to create. We're going to start by creating 100 millionaires in the creator space, using the tools and rules that we built. So we hope that, having built and sold multiple companies, at this point, it's not about building and selling another company. It's about legacy of actually creating $1 billion of annual income to diverse and underrepresented communities. So that is, white, black, Hispanic, Asian, it doesn't matter. Women, we want to help people make a lot of money. We want to have them be able to do it on an annual basis.
So picture this, you're stuck on a desert island. Start ahead, make this clear. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no Zoom calls, and no neuroprogrammatic dashboard. Sorry. Just you, your thoughts, and maybe a volleyball. What 3 things from your career, 1 ad campaign, 1 piece of tech, and 1 team member would you help you survive? And bonus points if you can somehow include coconuts with this.
Yeah. So let me make sure I got that right. Tech, people, and what am I missing?
1 ad campaign, 1 piece of tech, and 1 team member.
So the ad campaign, the Coca-Cola, give the world a Coke. It's still my favorite, all-time favorite. I mean, if I'm on an island, all I need is the ability to pump water. So I would say a well pump, and then people with me, wife, kids, and I don't know, maybe an Einstein or someone like that. They could just keep you
help you
thinking
get
all
off.
the time. Yeah, I don't know that I would
So
want to get off. I mean, honestly, isn't that like a blessing? If you got fresh water, no tech, no work, and to your point, eating coconuts, all the coconuts you can eat, you're good.
But that's not all. You also have some island natives, and that you have to be able to target them with 1 ad campaign from your career that would win their loyalty. And what would that be?
Well, my career, Jesus. I mean, I don't even know if any of them are applicable, but one of my favorite ad campaigns when I was a kid, we did, before there was a Zillow, before there was a Google Maps, we created Bay Area homes pages at ABC Radio. And what we were doing was essentially making a searchable GIS map for real estate. My favorite sell of that was the sponsor was Old Republic Title, and title companies never advertise. And so, people were telling me it was never going to happen. We got that investment. It was one of the coolest things ever for me. Ultimately, that was a multi-million-dollar campaign. The station group that only did 8 figures. So
let's say during your time stranded on the island, a laptop washes ashore with 1 working app. What is that app? And don't tell me Candy Crush.
No, I don't play Candy Crush, but I would say maybe Star Wars. I do play Star Wars. I don't know. I don't want it to be email. Maybe just a regular phone app, right? Just to be able to talk to people you love.
So imagine you have to pitch your rescue plan to a passing ship. What is the tagline? Something catchy like "Save me and I'll revolutionize your ad strategy," or do you go with emotional manipulation?
I go with emotional manipulation. Something that's going to try to make them feel something compelled to stop. Yeah, I don't know what that would sound like, but I'd have plenty of time to think about it, I guess.
And suddenly your neuroprogrammatic system works on the island. What is the first message that you'll serve to yourself? Would be motivation like "You've got this," or something practical like "Don't eat that weird ass mushroom"?
Yeah, if I can install a program to avoid the weird ass mushrooms, then I think I'm going with that. But definitely an app that, and this kind of goes to where neuroprogrammatic will be in the future, I hope, is to, if I want to relax, then I run, a 1-minute program, right? I don't have to meditate for hours. I can just run a 60-second or, 120 second and be at rest or be in bliss or be in a flow state. And, it's possible. I don't think enough people are doing it.
So if you can survive ad tech, you obviously could survive a desert island, but would you choose to stay marooned or get back to your inbox?
Yeah, I might choose to stay marooned. If I had my wife and kids with me, I would definitely choose to stay marooned. If I didn't, then I would get off. I mean, it's that simple. They are my purpose in life.
So you've built, sold, and reshaped businesses, spearheaded diversity initiatives, and created tech that literally thinks for itself. But I want to dig a little deeper. What is 1 failure that still stings and 1 success that makes you grin like a kid with an ice cream cone?
Yeah, so still stings, sold my businesses to the wrong people. I don't think I'll ever let that go. And then, the successes, I think, just time and time again. Yesterday I found out, or the day before yesterday, I found out that Ampersand had done layoffs, and I called texted my old boss, made sure he was okay. I mean, I think for me, it's the relationships in this industry that are everything. The
Right.
mentors, the people that are there for you when times are tough. I mean, there's so many, while there are bad people in this industry, there are so many great people in this industry. So that's, to me, the blessing of what we have.
So you've also mentioned your brother's tragic death as a pivotal moment in your life. How did that loss shape you and the way you approach your career, your family, and your sense of purpose?
Yeah, I mean, I think both my brother and I always put family first, so that hasn't changed anything. I think the loss is a club that you don't ever want for anybody else. Ultimately, what I would say is it's definitely given me real clarity of, tomorrow's not guaranteed. I hate to sound cliche, but it really is that. So, try to do your best every day for everyone that you love, and don't default to laziness, like I'll get to that tomorrow or do whatever.
If you could have one conversation with Tony Pace, if he was alive today, what would you ask him now, and what do you think his answer would be?
You're gonna make me cry bringing up these two guys. Tony was a special mentor. I think what I enjoyed most about Tony is we always had conversations, just random conversations of everything from sports to life to where the industry is going and our opinions of it. But if I could talk to him again, who knows what we would talk about? I mean, I think we would probably talk about his frustration and still the lack of transparency and programmatic, because people won't move off of the systems that they're on to actually experience true transparency. Although that is shifting, I'm seeing. That would be frustrating to him. I think we would, talk about how terrible the Giants are this year. And we'd talk about everything.
So one of your favorite quotes is, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. But when was the last time you genuinely doubted yourself, and then how do you push through it?
Yeah, you're right. I don't doubt myself. But as a dad with two young boys, I'm always trying to instill that into them and let them know that, they work hard enough, and aside from genetic limitations, like if they work hard enough and never give up and have this see, they can get there. They may get there slower than others, but they can get there. For me, it's usually more of a, do I want to allocate the potential time investment that it would take at my age to get to something?
So you also mentioned that you love connecting with brilliant people. That's one of your favorite parts of your jobs. So what's the most craziest, wildest advice you've taken from someone brilliant and didn't work out?
So I think when I was considering selling my businesses, people were advocating that I sell it to just for the sake of selling it to, because it was already black owned and operated, someone black. The people that I chose, not that they were black, but the people that it limited the pool, and the people that I chose was the wrong people. So that was a big mistake on my part.
So if your kids were to ask to describe what you do for a living, what would they say?
Daddy sells commercials. They say Daddy sells commercials.
They don't say you're the guy who's always on Zoom?
No, they don't. I try to get all of my Zoom and my business calls when I'm working from home done by the time they get home, which is 4 o'clock.
So you built an empire of ideas, but if there's one lesson you want to leave behind for your family, your team, and even your competitors, what would that be?
I think, the best tech doesn't always win. The smartest people don't always win. I think ultimately it's about tenacity, and it's about relationships. And you have that combination right, you can win.
And on that note, I want to tie this all together. You've talked about reshaping the ad industry, pushing boundaries in tech, and creating a more inclusive ecosystem. But let's end it with this. What is next for you, and what should the rest of us be watching out for?
Yeah, I think we're now on this. We're hell-bent on helping other people create their own legacy, become millionaires with our tech. That's where our focus is going to be. I think everyone's going to find that it expands the ecosystem the way it needs to. And I think outside of that, as Neuroprogrammatic picks up and some of the big old codes that we're going to announce are working and using it, I think the combination of those things is pretty powerful.
So final thoughts. If you could put one message on a billboard for the entire world to see, what would it say? And bonus points if it's clever enough to make even the most cynical New Yorker stop and smile.
Yeah, I don't have tag for the work. I think if I was to say something, you got this, right? I think a lot of people second guess themselves. I think a lot of people need to be reminded.
That's a wrap on today's episode, and wow, Charles Cantu did not hold back. From breaking down how AI can actually understand human emotion to calling out the outdated nonsense that still holds back diverse media, he made it clear. If you're not evolving, you're already obsolete. Neuroprogrammatic isn't the future, it's now. And Reset Digital is proving that emotional intelligence isn't just for humans, it's for advertising too. A huge thank you to Charles for bringing his insights, his wit, and let's be honest, a much-needed reality check on where ad tech is headed. And of course, a massive shout-out to our sponsors who make this show possible. Troutman Amin LLP, the legal experts who actually understand ad tech and privacy laws. If you're in the industry, you need them in your corner. Incremental.com, helping brands measure what actually moves the needle. Because guessing isn't a strategy. Daily Motion. Their attention program isn't just about getting eyeballs, it's about engagement that matters. If you're tired of the YouTube monopoly, they've got the alternative you've been looking for. Rembrandt, forget intrusive ads. Rembrandt's AI makes product placement seamless, embedding brands directly into video content in a way that feels natural, not forced. And right now, if you try it, you could win $10,000. Yes, actual money, not just bragging rights. Visit their site today and see how AI is transforming brand integration. So that's it for today. If you like this episode, share it, tag a friend, and as always, stay bold, stay curious, and know more than you did yesterday. See you next time.